Welcome back, my friends, to the Predictive Playbook powered by SportsMemo.com and WagerTalk.com. I have a debut guest today, and I'm very honored to have him on board. It's going to be great having him on multiple times each week. And Mad George of Mad George Sports. From interviewing NBA superstars to ending parlay betting for his clients, which means he probably doesn't like parlays. Mad George has built a life revolving around pro sports. Acquiring a master's degree in international tourism and hospitality management did not hinder his love for sports and the sports world. He's done radio as well, reporting, writing for the biggest media outlets in Europe. Every NBA season is like music to his ears, even though his expertise includes NFL, Major League Baseball, college football, NHL, Euroleague, and soccer. This NBA expert and sports aficionado created his brand, Americanos 24, from scratch, and is one of the best, if not the best, U.S. sports handicapper in his native country of Greece. So I'm going to introduce Mad George to you, and he is located in Greece. This is a first for me, too, which makes it fun that we are this far apart, but able to have a great discussion about sports and Major League Baseball heading into the second half. Welcome to the show, George. How's everything in Greece?
Everything's great, John. Aside from the heat, everything's great. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Truly an honor. I'm ready to make some people some money.
Absolutely. That's the exciting part. I am up a little bit early today because of the Open Championship and just watching that. Anybody who'd like John Rahm to win this event would have paid 7 or 8 to 1. You can now get him at 25 to 1. He's not off to the best of starts, but keep in mind, this is only the first 9 holes of a 72-hole major championship. Brian Harman's your leader. He buried the first 3 holes. He's now at 4 under, making the turn. He bogeyed the 9th hole. Otherwise, he would have shot a 30 on the front. One other guy in history birdied the first 3 holes and went on to win. It was Nick Faldo at Muirfield Village. So whether Harman can turn this trick or not remains to be seen. But George, let's talk a little bit about baseball here. We have the Red Sox playing the Yankees tonight, of course, and then we get full slates going forward. And there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. I know you wanted to speak about the Dodgers and how they're situated. What I find fascinating in the marketplace is that fact that they are trailing the Giants, albeit by a small margin, but they're a pretty big favorite to win the division. Can you talk about the Dodgers and why they are such a huge favorite over a team that they trail?
So the way I see it is if they manage to beat whoever foe they possibly have to play in the wild card round, if they don't win the division, I don't see anybody stopping this team. And to be honest, it's all about balance. They have hitting, and they're not top heavy. I look at most of the other whether it's a contender or pretender, most teams are top heavy and they don't have that balance between hitting and pitching. Surely San Diego and San Francisco are legit rivals. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, and I won't be surprised if the Padres are the ones that end up kicking the Dodgers out of the playoffs. But at the same time, you have to respect this team's experience and this team's balance as far as hitting and pitching. They're second in baseball in runs per game at 5.23, and they're top 5 in bullpen ERA and overall ERA. So until I see it, it's going to be tough for me to believe that there's a team out there that can take them out come playoff time. Especially when it comes to NL vs AL, I don't see. I mean, the American League is wide open. The Astros probably are making a really good case for themselves, but when it comes to NL vs AL, I see the National League prevailing come playoff time this season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, George. I definitely see that happening. One question I've been asking most of my guests this week, and we talked about it on the Manny's Irish Pub Show, which is 4 o'clock Eastern Standard, Monday through
Great
Friday.
Show.
Thanks for saying that. It is a lot of fun. And I came across this. It was to promote discussion. Really, the Giants, despite having the best record in baseball, you can bet them to not make the playoffs at plus 550. Now, granted, I estimated that they would have to have kind of a collapse, like go 30-45 over the next 75 games for that to happen. But they have a starting rotation which is, with all due respect, pretty old. Not one of them is under the age of 30. I know you're in that 30s group, so don't be offended by that statement. But my point is, it's a 162-game marathon, and these guys are going to be making 30 to 35 starts in their 30s. And I just, I don't wish any injury on anybody. But the odds of that rotation staying intact down the stretch here would be amazing if they didn't have someone have to sit out a couple starts. So do you think it's possible the Giants could miss the playoffs based on what I outlined?
That's an interesting perspective, but I want to ask something else. Who saw this kind of Kevin Gausman season? Who thought
crazy,
Johnny Cueto could go back to being Johnny Cueto? I am not going to sit here and talk about how the Giants aren't going to make the playoffs. You make some very valid points, but I have a lot of respect for them from an organizational standpoint. You have to respect the way they've approached their semi-rebuild. They may not be flashy. They may not hit, a lot of home runs, but you have to respect the work that the GM has put in there. And as a fun bet at plus 550, anything you take at that price, if you want to throw a few dollars, especially considering, and I know your point of view is that there's going to be a lot of games that they have to play against the Dodgers and the Padres. And we're going to see some teams regress after the All-Star break, right? We could see the Yankees go on the run. I don't see it. I gave up on them early this year, thankfully. And we're going to see some teams regress. So from that point of view, I understand your approach as far as the Giants. But I'm not going to sit here and quote unquote disrespect what they've done so far this season.
That's well stated, and it is a bet that I emotionally don't like even making. It's like betting on somebody missing the cut at the Open Championship, for example. You're benefiting from someone's pain and suffering. I've never liked going in that direction. So with the
I'm a big Disclafani fan. I'm really happy he's back to his old Cincinnati days. Big time pitcher. Even though he had one rough outing against the Dodgers, and then his other two starts, he did quite well. But I didn't see Johnny Cueto going back to, his World Series days, and I didn't see Kevin Gausman coming out of nowhere and having this type of a season. Will he be able to replicate that next year or keep it up during the second half of the season? I truly don't know. And now that it keeps playing in my mind what you just said about the plus 550, these guys have to beat the Dodgers and the Padres quite a few times, and that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough down the stretch. The Padres they're playing a little bit better. They had some hiccups against the Rockies last couple days before the All-Star break. And coming back to my older point about the Dodgers, that's why I just love the Dodgers at plus 370 to win it all. They're just so balanced. Yep. And they hit with two outs. And even if they have the number 7 guy or the number 8 guy, he's still a threat. You look at other teams, they're top heavy, 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, and then after that there's guys batting 200 with a couple home runs, and they don't really pose a threat. You're not stressed out betting. This used to be the same case for the Yankees last year with all their home run hitting. Now this year they're hitting 70% of their home runs are solo shots. I don't know if you knew that, but if they had a couple guys on base here and there, they could have had 10 more wins. What are you talking about them in a different perspective?
Yeah, there's a stat that I track, expected runs scored. And no team in the last 10 years has been the outlier that the Yankees have been this year. And to your point, I thought we talked about it back in May and thought maybe it was just a blip on the radar. How could this lineup not start exploding? But as we speak, they are 6 runs better than the worst scoring offense in Major League Baseball. And I think, the next 10 games, they play Boston 8 times with Philadelphia sandwiched for a 2-game set between them. And it kind of sets the table for the Yankees. If they're going to make a run, it has to be now. And then that would give management a chance to try to pull off some kind of outrageous trade, which we're so accustomed to seeing. But this is their time. If they're going to make a run, it has to be now. They can't lose 3 or 4 from Boston. They've already lost 6 straight to the Red Sox. So
now or never.
It's now or never. Exactly.
And where would they be without Garrett Cole? Where would they be without that guy?
Who knows? I mean, the rotation right now, with the exception of him, as you know, is just it's in shambles, and it's putting increased pressure on the bullpen. We saw the bullpen give up 7 runs to the Astros, and then Altuve hit the walk-off homer to win it. And
thoughts and prayers to whoever bet the Yankees in that game. Thoughts and prayers. I just want to take a quick second here to tell you guys that here in Europe, when you bet when you bet your money line on Bet365, if your team is up by 5 runs, as the Yankees were up 7-2 against Houston, you get your bet paid in full. So if somebody bet it on this side of the planet, then they got paid. But whoever's betting on a traditional book to lose like that, one of my closest friends, he had the. I just felt for him. I felt his pain losing like that. That's a horrible beat.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of those this year. Across Major League Baseball, there's been a lot of unbelievable comebacks late that we haven't seen in previous years, and I'm not sure why that is. I don't think it's related to COVID and that kind of nonsense, but the Yankees are lucky to be even where they're at. They're 14-9 in 1-run games too. That's 5 games right there over 500. They're 3 games over 500 right now. They have to jump over Toronto, and Toronto is not a doormat. They actually probably could be a team to track down Boston, and then they have to jump over Tampa Bay, and that's just the division. So I thought it was very interesting that the line on Sunday night was plus 105 for the Yankees to make the playoffs. And how many times at the midway point of the year in the last 2 decades have we seen plus money for the Yankees to make the playoffs? Probably not many. But now it's plus 135. And in 3 days, it's gone up that much. And I think that's the market telling us that, don't take the Yankees right now. Let's see how, if you're a Yankee fan and you want to bet them, I would wait for the next 10 days to evolve and see how things look then. And then you'll have your answer.
Do these guys want to play for Aaron Boone, John?
I wonder that too. Honest to God, I wonder that, because there for a while, I mean, they couldn't even walk to the plate right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm exaggerating, but that's a great point. And he's got to be on a hot seat. Has to be.
I understand, and I agree with this whole shift to younger coaches, because coaches need to be able to be close to the athletes, understand their needs, understand their problems. They might have girlfriend issues or what have you. But some of these guys, they're fired up to play for their coach. I've seen that before. You want to put 10,000 asterisks next to the Astros? Yeah, absolutely. But I've seen it with the Red Sox and Alex Cora, just Nats with Dave Martinez. He just loves playing for that guy.
Yep.
Loves going to war for their coach, just like the Phoenix Suns right now with Monty Williams. I just don't see that fire in their eyes. And hey, when you got Aaron Judge, and I mean, LeMahieu is not having a great season for his standards, because hey, the greatest thing about LeMahieu was he was never bad. At worst, he was average, right? He wasn't going to bat 350, but he was never going to bat 320 at the same time, 220.
Right.
So, obviously it's easy to just fire the coach and, just make everything about him. But in my eyes right now, I don't see those guys fired up to play for Aaron Boone. Because if you remember last year, there was this he had this fight with the umpire, and then he came out and he used some language, and he said, "My guys are, monsters in the play." I felt that connection between them. I don't see that right now, John.
I agree 100%. There's a lot of problems with the Yankees right now, and it's just not starting pitching. We'll have to see how it plays out, but I mean the schedule. How could it not be better with the Red Sox and Yankees playing 8 of the next 10 games against each other? The scheduler did pretty good there. Let's move on.
We're looking at the standings. They're only 4.5 games out. So let's not sit here and talk about how I mean, it's not. I wouldn't bet plus 135. Because Toronto's legit. They've proven that, even though they're young and inexperienced, right? We knew they would hit. Their pitching is iffy, but hey, they have Ryu. They have. I mean, they're left. They're mostly lefties, so it's all about the matchup when it comes to a possible wild card game. But let's not sit here and write them off, because they can come out, as we said. Any team can come out, have a good stretch. You're right back in it.
It's very true. I'll tell you one thing, and a final note of the baseball here. I'm looking at Angels props and Mariners props, and it's kind of just hit in my head. And it's what's great about these shows we do, that it promotes discussion. It's not we're not dealing with a template or boilerplate stuff here, but the Angels are plus 575 to make the playoffs. They're, I believe, one game over 500, and Seattle
and 5.5 out.
Yeah, and Seattle, who's their record is better than the Yankees. They're 10-1 to make the playoffs. I would almost rather bet one of those two teams than the Yankees right now. In fact, I would.
From a betting value perspective, absolutely.
Yep. Especially the Angels are
especially the Angels. Agreed. I did not see the Mariners. I did not see this coming. And going back to what we said before, if they go on an 8-game losing streak, I won't be surprised. Mad respect to them. I stopped going against them. I learned my lesson. Especially at home. They're 9 games over 500 at home. They were a team that I thought was going to underachieve this year. And then in the beginning of the year, they were one of the teams I went against. And they proved to me that they're legit as far as, the first 90 games of the season. So I would definitely, from what you're saying, because you're putting thoughts into my head right now, maybe throw a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there. I kind of like the Angels. Why not?
Yep, I do too. They got 2 big names on that lineup, and this year we're seeing that especially, 2 guys, I mean, they could carry them.
Especially if Rendon comes back and he gets back to his old self, you got 3 big time power hitters right there. They can change the game with the swing. Yeah.
So let's talk a little NBA here before I let you go. And, this was one of the questions for the first 2 days, really the first 3 days of the Manny's Irish Pub show, and all the guests I did have, was that if Milwaukee wins Game 4, is Phoenix in trouble, knowing that teams that were up 2-0 in the finals go on to win the finals with a 31-4 record. Only 4 teams that have done what Phoenix has done have ended up losing. Now, there was a trend last night that I actually mentioned on Manny's Pub show. Knowing, we weren't giving away the store, but I was on the under. Tony Mejia was on the under. It was his 5% play, by the way. That was his under. That's his top-rated play.
Congrats, Tony.
And, that was pretty good. That's the nice thing about our group. When you know that you're on the same side as somebody that has one of those big monster plays, it can't help but make you feel good about what you're doing. But anyway, teams that have won the first 2 games and then are playing on the road with a total of 220 or more points, which was the situation last night, are now 11-1 to the under. And a perfect 9-0 since 2018 when scoring advanced to this level. Playoff games, you don't have any...
like Ralph Michaels. Kind of smells like, right?
Yeah, yep.
Smells like a Ralph Michaels special right there.
Yep. It probably, it comes from, I know his database, so I actually use that from time to time, but I rely on my own for the most part because it has all the algorithms and that kind of tools that I just love playing with. But now we're going to Phoenix for Game 5, and everybody knows that Game 5 is you win Game 5, you win the series, and that applies to both the Bucks and the Suns, obviously. Right now, the Bucks. We talked about this before we started recording this show. I thought if Phoenix could be as high as a 7-point favorite. I hadn't looked at it because we're recording this at a pretty early time on the East Coast here. But Phoenix is -4 and -110. The total is now down to 218.5. So the market's adjusted on that. I almost, I love Phoenix's coach. I love the chemistry, but do they have enough veteran leadership to send us home? Because they were up 6 points going into that fourth quarter last night. Didn't get the job done. And being up 3-1, vastly different than being tied 2-2 with all the pressure at home being put on this team. So how do you initially see this game playing out?
So there's a couple different perspectives you can look at this from. Let me start by saying that I did not bet yesterday's game. I did see a lot of sharp money on Phoenix. Was that a bad beat? Was it not? I don't really know because I had money on it, so I wasn't really fired up. But let me start by saying that I took Game 3 as my best bet. I'm 6-0 on my NBA best bets on SportsMemo. I really try to pick and choose my spots in the playoffs, and that's why I'm undefeated. Yesterday's game really came down to the final minutes and a couple critical turnovers from Chris Paul. There's a couple, quote unquote cliches that we can use. Role players, they play better at home in the playoffs. So Bridges was basically a no-show, Game 3 and 4. Bridges is going to have a good game, Game 5. So is Crowder. CP is going to look at tape. He's going to come out better. And Booker, who was good in Game 4, had an awful game in Game 3. This is a big, and I spoke about this with one of my friends who used to be a reporter. Now he's an agent for Octagon Europe, one of the biggest agencies in sports management.
Sure is. Yep.
We spoke about how this is a big mismatch for Giannis. If you take Aiden out of the game, that's what happened in Game 3, and that's how they build up that big lead. You take Aiden out of the game for a couple fouls, lane's wide open. It's a game on for Milwaukee.
Yep.
I have not sat down to crunch numbers yet, but from what I've seen in the first few games, you have to lead Phoenix, especially with the way they had Game 4 right there. They were about to go up 3-1 and go back home with a chance to clinch. I'm not going to quit on them this fast. I think this series goes 7. Anything can happen in 7 games. It's probably going to be Phoenix next game. Milwaukee back home, take care of business. Game 7, best thing in sports. And I will tell you right now, I will not be betting that game. I will sit back and watch it as a fan.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Phoenix is still a -135 favorite to win the series. It's not much of a favorite anymore. For this series to go 7 games, you're laying 125 VIG. If it goes 6 games, it's plus 100. I hate making bets that are -120 juice or more, but I agree with you. I think it might be one of those few times I see that's a decent pizza money size bet. And when I say pizza money, for those that don't know it already, it's whatever your cost of a pizza is. You're not anywhere close to a normal size bet, and it's just really for entertainment purposes. So I think that is a pretty good opportunity there. And maybe it'll go to -120 at some of the other books, and you can save a little bit of money that way. But it's going to be just fun to watch. I'm sitting here trying to think like, what's going to happen next type of thing. But
do you ever wait? Do you ever wait to see the refs assign to games before you bet them in the NBA?
We do. We definitely do. And that's one of the topics on Manny's Irish Pub. Rob Vino and Tony Finn do a great job with that. They know the referees better than anybody I've known for 27 years of doing this stuff. So, and I'm sure you have your network too of people that you talk to and trust, and it's very important. Um,
It's never good when you know the referee's name. I'll tell you that much. But as far as the NBA is concerned, because that is my bread and butter, I've seen these guys up close, and there's a couple NBA refs that you just trust that whoever's the best team is going to win. And there's some guys that they're kind of egocentric. You see their hair; they want their hair to always look good, and let me just say that Ed Malloy, in my opinion, and I've spoken to a couple of NBA stars about this. In my opinion, Ed Malloy is the best. He's the most. I don't know how to say it. He's the most 50-50 guy in the NBA right now. He doesn't care about who's at home. He doesn't care about who the star is. He's going to make the call. He's going to make what he sees. He's not going to try to correct a mistake with another mistake. I don't know if you remember this last year. They gave it was a Milwaukee-Miami game. I think they gave Middleton a really, really questionable 3-shot foul, right? He made all three. He tied the game. And then they called another BS call on Jimmy Butler, potential game winner. He got 2 free throws to win the game. So Mark Davis corrected his mistake with another mistake. We don't want that. Fans don't want that. Bettors don't want that. Make the call, and let the chips fall where they may. You win some, you lose some. That's what you're going to do about it.
So true. Yeah, you just want it consistent. I've coached a ton of baseball in my life, and you just want it consistent. If the guy's calling the outside pitch, do it for both sides. There's not a problem, because then you tell your team he's given the outside corner, so get up on the plate. It's pretty simple. But when it, like to your point, when it starts getting a little crazy, and then Coach Bud, does what he does and complains that, I forget what the situation was actually, but it was just this nonsense. It wasn't going to change how the referees are going to call the next game. But you just hope that they stay out of the way. I think a well-refereed game is where you really don't notice them. And
let me tell you something, John. In my country's culture, we complain about the refs a lot. It's baked into what we do as fans. We have a ton of newspapers, and each one is backing one team, so it's in my DNA. And I've seen refs help me win bets. I don't always think that the ref is killing me. Like I know, that's a questionable call. Thank you. Thank you, Zach Zarber. Thank you, Mark Davis, or what have you. But you just want it consistent both ways. And it's tough when you start handicapping and you have to consider the refs. I mean, football is a total different animal. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, I know which umps are fair, and, we pretty much know who's getting the calls in football anyway. So as far as basketball, because, it's always bang, bang, 50-50 plays. Consistency, as you said, is what you can ask for, especially when it's the NBA Finals. It's wrong. It didn't affect me personally, so I'm not going to. Maybe game 3 we did get a couple ticky-tack fouls as the Bucks. When you win by 20, nobody talks about it. But when it's the NBA Finals, we're talking about refs. Something is not right. We need to be talking about the players. We have, back-to-back MVP. We got point guard CP3, D-Book. We need to be talking about these guys and not the refs, in my humble opinion.
I agree with you. 100%. I think of baseball, and again, Tony Finn is just such a lively character when Angel Hernandez is mentioned as a home plate umpire, and he's made some brutally tough calls for strikes.
Twitter goes crazy.
Oh, you know it.
Twitter goes crazy.
And the other guy, Mr. West, as I call him, he's
oh my God.
His ego is larger than the game, in his humble opinion. But it is what it is. You know what you're going to get though with those two guys. You know the plate's going to be huge. The strike zone's going to be enormous when Hernandez is behind the plate. So there's one good thing about that, but still, it should not impact the outcome of the game or the flow of the game. that's where I get a little upset with the referees and especially the timeouts to review calls. Especially the phantom flops that we saw in the NBA playoffs. No, I'm not going to mention any names, but it's on the West Coast. He looks like he got hit by a truck, and then you see the instant replay, and he wasn't even touched. That's where I kind of go, oh, wow. Like, this is going to be reviewed on video, and you're going to look bad for doing what you did. But who am I to say?
I'm not going to continue because if I start, it's going to be tough on these, and these people are trying to do their job too, So I'm not going to continue in regards to this matter. Yeah,
it's a topic that comes up quite a bit on Manny's Irish Pub, which I've said a lot on this show. But it's like guys dropping by a virtual pub like you would do in real life. It was just an idea I created out of the COVID situation. We were coming out of it. It was refreshing to be able to walk into a place and sit on a bar stool and talk about sports or talk about whatever. And it was it's a lot of fun, period. And that's kind of what we do every day at the Irish Pub. And anybody that's on these shows is invited. So we have guys that show up that we don't even know they're showing up. So we can't wait to have you on because that'll be cool because you obviously can't walk into the pub even if it was a real pub because you're probably about 7,500 miles away from where I am, estimating.
But, and I just left Vegas. I just left Vegas not more than 3 weeks ago, and I do not miss the heat this time of the summer. I'll tell you that much. And it's still hot over here. It's not cold over here, but I do not miss that dry Las Vegas heat.
Yeah, it's the old story that it's 115, but it's dry heat. I don't care if it's dry heat, high humidity, whatever. It's in the high 90s here in the East Coast, and we have humidity. So, when it gets too hot, it's too hot. Doesn't matter if it's dry heat.
Just want to say, John, thank you very much for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to Manny's Pub, and hopefully we're not talking about refs the whole time.
No, honestly, it's all good. It's all good.
Honestly, we're not talking about refs the whole time because I can name all NBA refs. You want me to go to umpires and tell you about umps? Because hey, I'm a Packers fan, and I know for a fact that Monday night game against the Lions, we were getting BS calls. I wanted it. It was my teaser, my team, my teaser, my team. I wanted it as a fan, and I wanted it as a bettor. But you can't blindly lie to yourself. You got the calls. And that's what happened, and that's why the Packers beat the Lions on Monday night a couple years ago.
Yep, I remember that game.
Yeah, is it Blakeman? Fondly. It's Blakeman, right?
I believe you're right. Yep. I was trying to think of the names of the crew, but you're right. Yeah, Blakeman. It'll be interesting. You'll get along with Tony Finn just fine when I will intentionally bring up this topic. During the show, and then you'll see his eyes just kind of go like, "Wow, we're going to talk about this. This is great."
Excellent.
But anyway,
Excellent.
Thanks for your time, George. And guys, make sure you get over to SportsMemo.com. Check out his profile page every day. It's you type in sm.buzz/ I believe you are MG. But if that doesn't get you to Mad George, then just simply go to the experts drop-down navigation, and you're sure to find him. So this is a guy that I highly endorse that you start follow him on Twitter, follow him on any platform that he's on. So we're gonna have,
and it's almost football season. It's time to make some money for Christmas, man. Those presents are going to buy themselves, right?
It's very true. It's very true.
All right.
Thanks again for your time, George.
Soon, sir. Thank you.
Got it. So on behalf of George, myself, the Predictive Playbook shows, SportsMemo.com, WagerTalk.com. May all the wins be yours.